Hey there, and welcome to another video. Are you an aspiring or current wellness entrepreneur on a mission to help your clients get amazing results and build a thriving coaching business? If so, it's important to know that times have changed. We're not in Kansas anymore when it comes to chronic disease and the related life stress. They're exponentially rising, becoming more complex, and less responsive to standard approaches, including standard functional medicine approaches that may have worked 10 years ago or more. And if they do work on the short term, which in some cases they absolutely do, and clients see great results, it's many times not sustained. If this were not the case, there wouldn't be countless chronic illness Facebook groups filled with thousands upon thousands of members who've run the functional medicine gamut. They've done tons of labs, taken boatloads and boatloads of supplement protocols, and implemented other standard functional medicine approaches, yet they continue to struggle and seek solutions. We've come to realize that the standard functional integrative model, while it indeed has many upsides and benefits, has become rather obsolete in ways and continues to promote approaches that we feel are total BS and need to be ditched. In this video, we reveal what we feel to be the 10 most common ones. I'm Jennifer Ellis Schutz, functional health practitioner and transformational coach, and you're watching the Wellness Code Academy channel.
Welcome, everyone. Jen and I are so excited to share this topic with you today, and we are glad that this information is intriguing to you. We could go on and on about this topic, but in an effort to keep this video short and sweet, we're going to keep things a bit brief for you. So let's jump right in. Number one of the 10 standard functional medicine approaches to ditch would be the adrenal fatigue model of chronic fatigue and prescribing adrenal supplements. So Jen, tell us, what is your belief about this standard functional medicine approach?
Thanks so much. So I will fully admit that after I came out of my functional medicine training programs, which I just want to say were excellent training programs, I'm saying nothing bad against them, I absolutely embraced this adrenal fatigue model of chronic fatigue. However, I have come to learn through many hard-won lessons that this is really outdated and not based on good science whatsoever. For the fact that the only condition where the adrenals truly lose their ability to produce cortisol is with Addison's disease. What's really going on in chronic fatigue is that the mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of our cells and the concert masters of innate immunity, have been in a state of distress for so long that now they are stuck in chronic cell danger response mode. And as a result, the body's entire energy production and endocrine system are down-regulated as a conservation mechanism. And so throwing a bunch of adrenal supplements at this condition is really, in my opinion, based on my personal experiences and now working with hundreds of clients, is just kind of like putting a Band-Aid on the situation, and in many cases can make everything worse and further drive chronic cell danger response because the body's not truly being given what it needs in order to create the correct environment for health to happen. And so that's my explanation of it. And now on to point number two, or approach number two that needs to be ditched because it's total BS. And point number two is promoting high plant-based, high fiber diets across the board for gut healing in order to feed beneficial gut bugs. Sarah, how about you take this one?
Definitely. Gut health is my jam. And this is something that you taught me in the Wellness Code Academy practitioner training program that I I highly recommend, hint, 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 is that, fiber is not necessarily as critical of a quote unquote nutrient as we often think it is. But when you try researching first steps to take in order to heal your gut, many articles and many experts and things like that will say you need fiber to feed the beneficial gut bugs. However, what we don't know and we're not being taught is that fiber doesn't just necessarily feed good gut bacteria, but it can also feed more pathogenic ones, more harmful ones. And when it comes to gut bugs, it's all about balance. So we don't want too many of the bad ones, but we also don't want too many of the good ones either. So we really have to be very cautious in how we use this approach. And healing the gut and focusing on fiber is going off the outdated model that we have to support what's going on in the large intestine, which is where most of your bacteria resides. But many of the complications of digestive issues actually starts with the small intestine as being the main focus, which is where we don't want a lot of bacteria to be. So especially when we're dealing with things like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, eating a lot of fiber can be adding fuel to inflammation that might be going on. And it's kind of like describing sandpaper to an open wound when you're having all of that fiber in the diet. And when the gut is very dysbiotic, meaning imbalance of bacteria, and there's potentially more bad bugs than good ones, then giving fiber is just continuing to add to that imbalanced picture. So we really have to keep in mind an individual when we're talking about approaches. And so blanketly recommending high plant-based or high fiber diets across the board is, again, potentially creating more harm than good, which we all want to avoid.
And I will just add to this by saying I am one that fell into the category of severe ongoing gut issues that mostly were relegated, I would say all relegated for me in the small bowel. And every single time that I tried to add fiber to feed my good gut bugs, or taking probiotics to, support the good gut bugs and so forth, I would flare up so bad and it would set me back for weeks. I can remember when I was really bad, sometimes even months, that would then take me so long to pull out of. And each time that happened, another layer of scar tissue was created, because inflammation creates, micro levels of scar tissue. What helped me the most, if I'm being honest, was removing all fiber and all probiotics for a sustained amount of time and going strict hardcore carnivore to allow that gut lining to start to heal. Because let's face it, we can't really even proliferate beneficial gut bugs in an environment that's filled with chaos and inflammation. So first step is eating to reduce inflammation, whatever that translates to for an individual person. But for those with chronic small bowel issues, it typically means reducing or entirely removing fiber for that time until a certain amount of healing can happen.
I see that time and time again in my Heal Your Gut for Good group program. All right, awesome. So number 3, running labs to assess for intestinal permeability, which many may know more as leaky gut. And this, why is this, Jen, another complete BS situation?
I mean, this is like a smack in the face. FFS, which stands for you know what sake. It's just utterly ridiculous. And I'm embarrassed to even admit that at one time I totally bought into this. Let's run an intestinal permeability test to confirm that you have leaky gut. And there's really not much to say about this other than the fact that if one is dealing with chronic health issues, physical or mental health issues, with or without obvious gut symptoms, The gut is leaky and dysbiotic, for goodness sakes. We don't need to spend time, but more importantly, finances in a lab that's going to confirm that for us. It's a waste of a client's financial resources. Okay. So that's all I have to say. It's pretty simple and to the point. Where there is chronic disease, there is gut dysfunction. And where there is gut dysfunction, the person is somewhere on the spectrum of intestinal permeability. We don't need a piece of paper to confirm that.
Yeah, well, and would you say too that you see people running these types of labs, it's not showing maybe leaky gut, and then they're like, oh, well, I don't have leaky gut.
Correct, because people put so much emphasis on labs that whatever a lab says, that's what's going on in the body. And labs are, they provide much useful data. I use them, you use them, no doubt, but they are not the holy grail, and they are not 100% reliable, ever. Nothing is.
Right. Okay. And they don't let us know why the gut is leaky.
No.
Even if it did, right? So it's
and
not
again, we don't need a piece of paper to tell us the gut is leaky. Chronic health challenges go hand in hand with leaky gut. End of discussion. Okay. So that brings us to approach number 4, which is very related, and that is running food sensitivity panels. So Sarah, tell the audience, why is this total BS and why do we need to ditch it?
Yeah, another thing I used to do and haven't in a really long time, but there's many reasons why I stopped running food sensitivity panels with clients. Part of it being it can cause more stress on a person to feel like they have to be, doing what's on a piece of paper. But, there's so many different ways that the body and the gut can react to foods. And there is no one test that can assess all of these things. Number one, if there's inflammation in the gut, there's again going to be foods that we might not tolerate, particularly more fiber rich foods. A food sensitivity panel is not going to address that. Most, food sensitivity tests are not considering if someone's having a histamine reaction or an oxalate reaction or a lectin reaction, which can definitely be the case for certain people.
A big one, though, is a limbic system driven reaction where the brain is the one overreacting and perceiving, even healthy foods as threats and thus communicating down to the gut. There's no sensitivity panel that will show that type of reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, when the nervous system is stressed, it's hard for us to digest just about anything really well. And some people then will use it again as this test said that this food is fine, so I can eat it. And yet they have a physical reaction. So then it's almost preventing them from being in tune with their own body. Well, because the panel says I don't react to it, so I must be okay with it. But then, the test could miss things that you are reacting to. So, and a lot of times I would have people that would be like, but all of the foods that it says that I'm not doing well with are the foods I eat all the time. Or if it lights up like a Christmas tree, again, it's not indicating the fact that there's an issue going on in the digestive system. The gut is leaky, which is causing an increase in immune reactivity towards foods. And so again, it's not going to help us assess what root causes are going on that, we need to be able to address it. And so nothing trumps a good old-fashioned elimination diet, especially, one that Jen mentioned earlier, like a possible carnivore diet, or, a GAPS type framework, depending on the person, short-term as possible to allow maximum healing while people work on other factors outside of just food, followed by slowly reintroducing things and really paying attention. I had a wonderful participant in my group program call last night who was like, hey, finally I started eliminating certain foods and I feel better. And now when I reintroduce, I'm getting a much more stronger reaction. So I now know, okay, that's the food I don't do well with. Whereas she said before, I was just eating, I just never felt good. And so I had no clue what foods were causing problems. So it just helps to provide much more empowerment in the process, and is really the best way to go when it comes to figuring out what eating to reduce inflammation looks like for an individual.
100% agree. And just to add a couple more points before we move on to the next approach to ditch, is that I once did an experiment with myself, and I ran 3 different high rated sensitivity panels from 3 different labs, and they all gave different results. And if I was to have avoided everything that they recommended, I wouldn't have been eating anything except maybe ice cubes. Okay. And that's just not reasonable. And I could see where when someone is stuck in chronic cell danger response mode and is very anxious about their health condition, how the results can fuel further fear and move them further away from being truly in tune with their body. Another thing that I wanted to mention is foods that, like you said, that were listed as okay, completely, like greens, go for it. Like green meaning green go, like they're okay to eat, safe to eat, would cause me the worst flares, except foods that were listed as dangerous, I was doing the best with. So very unreliable, out of sorts, incongruent results that just caused further mind chaos in me. And we all know that further mind chaos creates further stress creates further digestive dysfunction. And I will also say that though I'm kind of against them across the board, there is one exception that I can say, okay, maybe it's time to run a food sensitivity panel. And that's if after someone does a prolonged solid elimination diet, like a hardcore carnivore, and gets their symptoms down to a bare minimum, if not completely eradicated, and they want to start reintroducing foods, to run a panel to help guide what foods would be the best to reintroduce, to give some data to help drive that path. But even then, I got to say it's questionable, because I always go back to nothing trumps being in tune with one's own body and listening and paying attention to those signals. Yeah. So let's move on with approach to ditch number 5. And that is running excessive numbers of labs in general, and then creating supplement protocols to address the findings. And what I can say about this is that this is no different than conventional medicine, peeps. There's nothing functional about merely replacing conventional labs and medications with functional labs and supplements and or bioidentical hormones, which seems to be a very common approach in the functional integrative medical space. The only time financial resources should be spent on running labs is if they will provide data that is not already obvious by current symptoms and history. Number 2, the results will change the approach. And number 3, the client needs it for validation and motivation to make necessary changes, or the family needs it for validation. But now this really becomes more of a mindset and a belief issue that really needs to be discussed. That's all I can say about that.
So Jen, then I guess, I'm anticipating what others watching this video might say. So it's like, well, if running labs isn't necessarily the top way to kind of understand what's going on within the body and know how to address things, and maybe what supplements may be safe and strategic, like what approach do you use and recommend practitioners learn about?
Yeah, so once again, I just want to reiterate that I absolutely respect, honor, see value, find validity in, and use lab testing in my practice. But again, only if they meet those 3 criteria that I went. And my long journey, personal health from hell, my own personal health journey from hell, and also working with, again, hundreds of clients over years, really brought me into the realm of energy testing and tapping into the power of the subconscious mind, which is essentially the storehouse of everything that has happened to us and the innate inner wisdom of the body that knows what the body needs to heal and thrive. And which then led me to the development of the Wellness Code Energy Testing and Quantum Coaching System, which is a very organized energy testing system, all based on functional medicine through the lens of psychoneuroimmunology, and all based on all of the concepts that I teach in the wellness, that we teach in the Wellness Code program together. And it's just a way of literally speaking with the body's subconscious, all-knowing energy body in order to get answers that no lab test can provide us with. And then we combine that with lab tests that we ran, lab tests that the client maybe have brought forth from past practitioners, and we put it all together to form an overall clinical picture with much greater precision.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about this process, what that might involve, be sure to click on the links below for our freebie, where it's a 4-part video training that kind of goes through what that looks like. We even do a demo energy testing session together, so you can kind of visualize what learning that approach might do for you and your business, as well as being able to support your clients from a much more customized lens.
Yes, and much more holistic. Absolutely. And the name of that freebie is A Core Missing Link in Your Coaching Practice. Tap into the power of the subconscious mind, which brings us to approach number 6, to ditch, which is looking upstream, but not looking upstream of upstream. So Sarah, I'm going to let you start that, and then I'll kind of bring my insight into the mix on it.
Yeah, kind of what this means to me in the first thing I think of in just my own journey of becoming a more functional practitioner, even though I was a conventionally trained dietitian, is the intrigue of like helping clients find out their root causes. And that's a big buzzword right now of like, I'm going to help you find your root causes. I want to find my root causes. Or honestly, sometimes people are thinking they only have one root cause, which we know isn't always the case. So people want to learn what's really truly wrong. A lot of clients are sick of the conventional model. They don't want to take medications that they know are not addressing what's really going on. So, they're looking for these root causes. And so a lot of times I'll see, again, functional practitioners say, again, we're going to run these labs. We're going to find your gut bugs that need to be killed.
Hormone imbalances, toxic overload, leaky gut.
Yeah, and they say these are your root causes. Your root cause is a parasite. We got to kill it. And we're going to, that's how you're going to eliminate these symptoms. Or you have high estrogen. We're going to maybe recommend supplements. We're going to help you detox. You're going to maybe even get put on a
bioidentical progesterone, right?
Hormone balancing diet of like eating through your different phases, which I was like, who's got time for that? I'm like to figure out what phase am I in my cycle? Okay, well, what foods does that mean I need to eat? Like that's kind of.
So what I hear you saying, Sarah, is that these chronic infections like parasites and hormone imbalances and toxic overload, like mycotoxins and leaky gut, that's looking upstream. And we both agree, right? Yeah. So that's upstream, and they are causes, no doubt. However, what does exactly look upstream of upstream mean? Like, tell us about that. What's going on there?
Well, that's the thing is, so these things don't happen for no reason, right? We don't just develop the body has protection mechanisms in place. Even things like stomach acid, right? If we have enough stomach acid and we get exposed, because we are exposed to things in our environment, we're exposed to pathogens and bacteria and things like that. And the body has protection mechanisms in place to try to prevent these things from becoming a problem. But because of deeper issues going on, we essentially become weak hosts. We, have other things going on in the nervous system, for example, that when the nervous system is dysregulated and we're not in rest and digest mode, the vast majority of the time, then the body starts to have these protection mechanisms don't work as well. We don't detox as well. We don't digest as well. Our hormones, because these are not seen as top priorities.
So when you're saying issues brewing in the subconscious realm, I just want to bring some clarification to this and see if we're on the same page. You're referring to like patterns that people kind of engage in, like perfectionism, pushing beyond one's capacity, continuing going above and beyond to overfunction and please others at the expense of one's well-being, worrying, ruminating, all these kind of psychological patterns that we humans are notorious for engaging in that wear us down at the core level. And these are happening mostly in the subconscious realm and being driven by traumas, big traumas, little traumas that we experienced at an earlier time in our life, but most often run in our blind spots. Like, I don't have trauma, but yet we're doing all these things. Something is driving this, okay? Which then leads us to self-sabotage and
Low
lack
self-worth.
low self-worth, poor self-care. And this is what paves the foundation for becoming a weak host. And then we become a pincushion to chronic infections. And we get exposed to a moldy environment, and our detox pathways are already running suboptimally. So we start to accumulate more toxins than our body releases. And the next thing you know, we wake up to chronic illness and we think it's only because of these biochemical upstream issues, but there's deeper issues upstream of upstream. And I have come to believe, and I think you've arrived at this too, is that those are the true root cause drivers, the true things that need to be addressed, which the traditional model of functional and integrative medicine is not doing a great job at it. They might say, by the way, you got to reduce your stress levels. But at the end of the day, most people don't really know what that means or how to do it.
Or my favorite, just add in meditation. I'm meditating, so I'm taking care of my nervous system and things like that. And I think that's the thing is people don't understand is like, yeah, if you have parasites and it's really creating stress, yeah, it needs to be addressed, but like, you can't just do that.
Right.
You got to do both the physical stuff and the psychological stuff in the order the body needs to address them in, depending on
what is where energy testing comes in. So this is where tapping into the power of the subconscious mind and allowing the body to communicate through vibrational frequencies is really a way to help bring more precision and raise awareness and to take people beyond the biochemical. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We got to address the parasites. We got to do all these things, but there's bigger issues to look at to find out why the parasites even set up camp in the first place and why the body continues to succumb to these things. All right. Yeah. So let's move on to the next approach to ditch, because it's total BS. And that is working with clients within an expert approach. In other words, the practitioner is the expert that figures out what's going wrong and provides a prescriptive solution. So what can you say about that, Sarah?
Yeah, this is the scenario of going to a practitioner maybe a couple of times. We run labs, they hand me protocols, and maybe they give me a diet handout that they typically give pretty much every client. They give me a handout on a few stress relieving techniques, and then they send me on my way. There's no further discussion. There's no, does this feel good to me or the client? How can you get away from roadblocks that might be keeping you from making certain habit changes in your life? It's just here's what I know, here's what you need to do, there you go and do it. And, this is something that's a hard lesson for a lot of people that are in the healing realm, because we get into this business because we want to help people, right? But a big lesson that I've learned, particularly from you, is that that's not my job. That's not my role. Nobody is responsible for anybody else's health journey. So it's really about empowering the person to become their best self-healer, and really working in collaboration with them to put your brains together to come up with, approaches that feel good to them, what resonates with them, what intuitively do they feel, they need to work on, change, and all of that, instead of
inspire them to step into their power and take action. And it kind of goes along with that biblical saying, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he eats for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I've come to learn that we are all hardwired, okay? Meaning we're inborn with the need for self-efficacy, to feel self-empowered, not to have others provide our solutions. We've been programmed to expect and want others to provide our solutions, but that is not how we are wired at our core. We want to be in charge of our own health. And I have come to believe, again, through hard-won lessons, that the current functional integrative model, it kind of emphasizes that that's what it does, but that's not what I experienced. And I worked and I consulted with countless top-notch functional integrative practitioners. I never felt empowered. I felt that they were the expert and I was seeking them to provide solutions, and it didn't work. Okay.
Or being traumatized because whatever you're saying, this doesn't resonate with, but you just need to do it because this is what's going to get you better.
Right. Or I did it and it didn't work. And then there's this kind of element of blame that I didn't do it right, or I didn't put forth enough. The expert approach does not work. It has to be a client-centered, holistic, empowerment-based approach that puts the client in the driver's seat of becoming their own best self-healer, where the practitioner is just the facilitator, the guide, the mentor, whatever.
Yep. 100%.
Yep.
All right. Number 8, over relying on supplements as the main way to fix issues. I know there's a lot to be said on this topic, Jen.
Yeah, and we're just going to keep it short again to keep this video to a good length. But all as I can say is that, for the love of God, okay? Yes, supplements can be useful and necessary tools. Again, we both use them, but less is more. And I could go on and on and on in here, but all as I can say is that I experienced full-on supplement post-traumatic stress syndrome from all the ones that were prescribed to me, that most often didn't do jack shit, or many of them even made me worse. But overall, they drained my finances. And I had like graveyards, cabinets, closets, rooms full of supplements that some of them were never opened, some were opened, never finished. And it was just a grim reminder that, all of that time and money spent and all of the effort that went into opening bottles, taking supplements with the hope, yes, this supplement protocol is going to be the one to fix me. And this insanity went on for years. Supplements do not heal you. They are only tools to support the process. And so we got to ditch this. And functional medicine to say, oh no, we don't just do that. But yet that's what I experienced 98% of the time that I went to functional medicine practitioners. So as much as functional medicine says that they don't do that, they do it, because I experienced, and every client that comes my way has experienced the same thing. So it's going on. It's bullshit. It needs to be ditched. Approach number 9, not leading with the world's 12 best self-healers. What are the 12 best self-healers, Sarah?
Yeah, these are the foundational things that really we all need to tap into in, whatever way works best for us. I always kind of say, like, there's no point in building a brand new house on a weak foundation, right? You don't want to spend all the time, effort, and money to do that, only to have it crumble. So sunlight is a key one. We are natural human beings governed by the outdoors. Deep restorative sleep. We tend to think, we'll sleep when we're dead, right? Optimal hydration and good quality filtered hydration with adequate minerals, because water doesn't hydrate us without the minerals. Bioavailable nutrition, whatever that looks like for you. There is no one size fits all. There is no way to Google anti-inflammatory diet and follow that and expect it to work for you. Restorative movement. I love the word movement over exercise, but finding good movement that works well for you, not overdoing it. Functional and therapeutic breath work. I know you and I are both big fans of breath work. There's a lot. Maybe we'll do another video separate one day on breath work. Nature connection. Again, going back to getting outside. A mindset, developing a mindset for healing and a positive mindset that, you know, can
Growth
support
mindset.
growth mindset. Thank you. Nervous system regulation. Again, many different tools to use for that. Self-compassion is a really huge one, kind of being kind to yourself on this journey, because it is not an easy one. Good quality connection, so having good relationships in your life instead of toxic ones, and living your passion and purpose, finding joy in your life, doing things that really light you up and make you feel really good versus doing certain things because you feel like you have to.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that by saying that we also need to shift the whole discussion around illness. Instead of asking, what are the root causes of illness? How about we lead with, what are the root causes of wellness? Because if I'm being honest, when I found myself deep into the dark abyss of chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, Lyme, mold illness, mast cell activation syndrome, too many diagnoses to even list, you know, I went to these awesome functional integrative practitioners, and they ran their labs and created their supplement protocols, but yet there was minimal to no mention about these things. And I look at this list and I think back, I reflect back, and none of this was optimized for me. In fact, I was living completely on the antithesis of being in alignment with the laws of nature. My nervous system was hugely dysregulated. I wasn't following my true passions and purpose. I didn't have enough nature connection. I wasn't getting enough sunlight. My sleep was for shit. My nutrition, it was okay, but it was definitely not, you know, eating to help me heal and reduce inflammation. Restorative movement, no, I was doing high intensity bullshit exercises that were further putting my mitochondria in a sense of threat. So none of these had been optimized. And I got to ask myself, before I invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally no exaggeration, hundreds of thousands of dollars in all these labs and supplements and intravenous protocols, had I taken a year to really dial in on these things, how much would I have saved myself and how much would I have put myself ahead? But instead I did all of that, those expensive things without ever focusing in on this. And I got sicker and sicker and sicker. And the sicker I got, the more trauma accumulated in my nervous system, the more my nervous system became dysregulated. And yeah, which then led me into doing the work I'm doing now and us even creating this video right now. All right, so let's move on to the last point, which is, what's the last point, Sarah? It's not focusing on the power of daily habit near enough, if at all. Bottom line, our health and our lives are largely, if not entirely, byproducts of what we do repeatedly, whether we admit it or not. And this includes our physical actions, our mental and emotional patterns, our lifestyle, and how we respond to people and events, etc. Can you add anything to that?
I will say that the thing with habits, again, a lot of times we engage in habits unknowingly that are not beneficial to us. So being very honest with all of these things is really important. But building habits is a slow and steady process. We don't want to try to change a million things at once because we think, well, I need to get well fast and I want to feel better now. So, more is more. But in the beginning, less is more. And a big question to always ask is, if I were to change my habits by 1 to 5 more percent towards things that are going to support me, what might that look like?
Yeah, and also I just want to bring in one of the infamous sayings that we teach in the Wellness Code program, is that it's not our current position that matters, but it's rather our trajectory. And our trajectory all boils down to what we do each and every day in our daily habits. And so, I even to this day ask myself, if I wanted to improve my energy levels, what's one small action that I can take and stay consistent with, no matter how small, that I'm willing to start today and stick to it? And over the course of the year, if we keep doing these things, we're going to find ourselves in a whole different position. But once again, we come back to hustle culture and wanting everything fast, more, get it done, do it, find the solution, bust it out and move on. And that's just not how nature works, how we work, how the world works. It's just not reasonable. And it further fuels the stress, illness, pain, chronic inflammation, low energy, life dysfunction cycle.
Yep.
And so this brings us to the end of the list of common functional and integrative medicine practices that need to be ditched because they're total BS. We hope that you found insight and some good food for thought within what we shared today, and that it gets you thinking. And if you're interested in learning more, be sure to once again check out our new freebie, A Core Missing Link in Your Coaching Practice. Tap into the power of the subconscious mind, and also check out our full Wellness Code, Holistic Healing, Wellness, and Life Optimization Practitioner Certification Program, which goes much deeper into all of this. You can find links to do both in the video information below. Do you have any closing words, Sarah?
Thanks for watching. We hope to see you in other avenues.
Absolutely. And as always, cheers to your healing, your resilience, and your success. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, have a good one.